on the mighty Mississippi, fishing a lake or stream. Dan will entertain you while pursuing an angler's dream. With rod and reel in hand, he searches for the trail that'll lead him to the story or other fishing tales.
I'm Dan Galusha, and welcome to this edition of Dan's Fishing Tales. Today we're going to be fishing on the Hennepin Canal. My guest is Don Banning. He's an outdoor writer and seminar speaker, and we're going to be out here trying for some bass. So what do you say we get out here and start fishing? What we got going here? That one really hit good, right up to the top. That crankbait had just hit the water. I cranked about 2 times. It just probably went under the surface about 3 inches.
You know, the conditions today are the kind that I like to see for bass fishing. Slightly overcast, and a lot of times the bass will feed actively all day under these conditions.
It's there. Ooh, yeah, I had another one hit. And now, look at that. Come right up at it.
They must be stacked in there, Dan.
They're in there. They're right on that spot.
I had a hit there on that spinnerbait coming out of there.
They're right on that spot.
I have to work this over here pretty thoroughly.
In fact, what I might do, a lot of times if you miss a fish like that on a crankbait or spinnerbait, it's good to come along with some sort of a worm.
Show them something different. It helps.
Yeah, I got this little finesse worm.
Must be bait fish along there because they seem to be bunched up in there pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been messing around here for a while. Oh, I wish I hadn't lost that one. That was a nice fish.
You could tell it was.
Yeah, I seen his mouth out of there, and any time you get one that's like that.
Well, we got some good water ahead of us leading up to the tube up here.
Mm-hmm. You got a lot of good current coming out through here, and then that current, if you watch it, the way it feeds, it comes down kind of off that side and then swirls over. And up there it actually makes a back current, which could hold something too. You got him.
Oop. My drag set a little light, but he's hooked.
You got the little one out of there.
I'll try to cull them out for you and make way for those bigger ones.
Yeah, let me get that bigger one.
He's under the boat.
Maybe he's bigger than that? No.
No, he's rather small.
Yeah. Here's a general rule on the canal, you don't get real big bass.
Biggest I've ever caught out of the canal was 3 pounds, and that's considered real good for the canal.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard stories of 5 and 6 pounders, but they're few and far between.
There's one. You gotta make some.
He must know he's on camera, Dan.
He knows he's on camera.
He's a lively one.
Come here. He's been caught before. Right over here in his mouth. That shows right there that catch and release works. Because I was able to catch him again, and somebody else will too.
Generally, if they're handled gently and they aren't hooked too deep, they'll survive to fight another day.
Yeah, they sure will. And this one will again. There you go.
You got kind of a west or northwest wind, and that's usually a good wind for fishing.
That's a good wind for fishing. Like they always say, the wind from the west, the fishing's the best.
The way we've started off today, I kind of have to agree with that.
Oh yeah, it's been actually great fishing. Anytime I catch fish, I don't have to get the, if I'm in a tournament, yeah, then I'm wanting my keeper size fish, which actually are getting a few around that size. But when you're just out for fun, which most people are, heck, just get something to jerk the line, especially if you're catch and release fishing like this.
As much as I love bass fishing, Dan, I do some catfishing too. I fish for a lot of species, and the biggest thing is to be outside, enjoying out of doors, and the fishing isn't...
Oh, right there. Right by the boat had him.
That was close. Catching fish isn't the only thing. There's a lot of things around us, we can observe in nature too that makes it enjoyable.
That's correct.
I see one just boiled over there.
Yeah, look at them over there. One thing that might work in there too, the way they're hitting, is like a shadow or any of these, what they call, there he is, got him.
That looks like a good fish, Dan.
Yep.
He was clear back there almost to the bank.
I got him up towards the surface. He's not. Well, he's not real.
He's not as big as I thought, but
no.
He was plenty scrappy, wasn't he?
Yeah, you're not kidding. Well, he had so doggone many weeds on him, it's hard to tell. Because they're right up in those weeds.
Oh, I had one.
Yes.
There he is.
Yeah, you got
Missed
one.
him. My drag set too loose. It slipped. I had 2 strikes there. I had to tighten the drag down.
One thing I like to do with my crankbaits, and you'll notice I keep my rod tip pointed down towards the water. That's because when I set the hook, I like to sweep set it, and by keeping that point down next to the water, the tip of the rod, it keeps that crankbait down more on its running level than if I had it up like this, because I'd actually be pulling that crankbait up. So I want to keep it down here so that the line goes right parallel to the water as much as possible. And that way it can run all the way back to the boat, same depth. This particular crankbait runs about 2-3 foot deep. There's something on there, but it's not fish. Been getting them on black worms, and naturally I got a different color on it. I got pumpkin seed. I see one thing I'm having a problem with. I think this crankbait may need tune just a bit. It's running a little bit to the left.
You might have to do what they call tuning it, Dan.
That's what I got to do. I got to tune the thing. Got to get a...
Some people might think tuning is limited to musical instruments, but also has an application on fishing lures.
Well, you can see this probably catching those fish too. Sometimes they'll knock it out of tune. That eye is bent just a little bit to the left, and that's the direction it's running. So I want to bring that just a little bit to the right so it's straight.
Can make a world of difference.
Yeah, another thing that can actually do it too is right back here. If these aren't straight, the little hook hangers, they can make a difference too. Learned that from Johnny Crane. Johnny's quite a crankbait fisherman. Of course, you know Johnny because he does the seminars with us.
Right. He's gets into the crankbait aspect of fishing a lot during the seminars.
Well, I was talking to Johnny about fishing in one of those European-style fishing tournaments, where you got to use a float. And he says, "Can I use my crankbait under the float?" And I said, "No, not hardly, Johnny. You have to go with live bait." And he says, "Then I don't want to fish it."
He's a real specialist when it comes to crankbaits.
Oh,
and
he
he's
sure
caught his
is.
share of good big bass on him too.
Yeah, he's caught some real good fish. He's a good crankbait fisherman. Yeah, see, that's running straight now. It's going right down the line.
When they want to tend to run to one side, they're no good really. They got to track true, or you won't have an effective lure.
There are the certain times. Now, there was a fish marked one at 3 foot. There are certain times that a crankbait that runs off the side can produce fish, but the majority of the time you want a crankbait run straight. There's one. I don't know if he's still in there or not. Jerked him clear across that brush pile with that. But you thought, whoa, what did I eat? Because he's a little devil. I want to show you all how to put one of these worms on here so that they're straight when you use them. First thing I got to do is get this hook back to the way it was. First off, we're going to get a worm here. Now, when you thread it on, put it in like this, and then bring it on around, and when it starts to make the bend on the hook, right after it starts going around completely on a bend, then bust the point of the hook through right then. Come down on it, then you've got a straight worm. Goes right with it. If you'd go a little bit too far, it'd be balled up wrong. You want to make it just so after it starts to make the bend, then break the point of the hook through, and it'll hang straight like that. Then you're going to get a lot better action off of it. Now let's see if we can catch some more fish. Another smaller one. Small ones hit like bluegills. When you feel them tap, you don't even know whether to set the hook or not. Say aw. There you go. Okay. Don, you know these tubes, there's a whole series of them all the way up through the canal. And a boat even this size will go through them, and that's how you get from one pool to the next. Yeah. The fishing on the tube, if you're going into it, you kind of want to fish that, because sometimes there's fish sitting in that
That's
tube.
true. You
and
can
right
watch
on
for
the other side of it.
You can watch for the bait fish in there, Dan. A good tip-off in the tubes as well as the other locations is your minnow's jumping and working. That'll indicate there's some predators in there after them. One thing, though, that I want to stress to people when they're going through a tube like this is if they're using like a trolling motor such as this, you might be able to make it all the way up to the other end, but you can kind of see through here that little V that's forming in here. You get into that, and I've actually had this boat just stopped with this trolling motor going full blast, and I've got 55 pounds of thrust. It'll really move this boat, but I've actually been stuck right there just by the current and the suction being formed by it. And so you got to kind of watch that. There's an amazing amount of force when you figure all that water, the flow of the water is channeled into a rather narrow area. Could make it quite difficult. It does. It just stops you dead. And you better get a good run at it. Of course, those people that have got the smaller horsepower gas motors, they don't have that problem. They can go right through there. How big you think? Oh, he doesn't look too bad, Don. It's not a bad one. No, I'm hung up over on the other side. He's boiling up the water pretty good. Yeah. On that doggone spinnerbait again. I just can't give up on it, Dan. No, and I haven't put one on like that yet. I keep throwing everything else. Of course, I've been catching them on what I've been throwing. Well, you don't want your trolling motor to run out here. Is it any deeper here? Not really, no. I don't think so. No, not really. We're still in 3 foot of water. Running at the boat, so not bad. This isn't a bad fish at all. You're just gonna play around here, aren't you? There we go. It's a good 14. So. Bad. Got him on that little, what they call a finesse worm. Still using that jig head, but I switched from the one type of worm, that sandworm, to this finesse worm. There we go. See if we can get another one in there.
Don, a lot of your outdoor writing's been done on historical things and also some of the conservation. So you've studied some of the history of the canal, haven't you?
Yeah, Dan, in fact, my first article that I was ever paid for was on the Hennepin. It was entitled A Day on the Hennepin, and it was about a day my wife and I spent fishing on the canal. And this was back in about 1974. And as I recall, we had a pretty good day. That kind of prompted me to write this article. Caught, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 bass. The biggest was about 3 pounds. That was on up towards, I guess it was probably between Geneseo and Atkinson. You know, there's a lot of history about the canal that a lot of people aren't aware of. The canal was built in the early 1890s. It actually took about 15 years to complete. And the first commercial craft to go down the canal was in 1907. And the canal covers 75 miles on the main part, and there's a feeder branch that comes in up around Sheffield. That comes out of Rock River. The main canal starts near a town called Hennepin, and it travels on down. It ends up going into the Mississippi River about 3 miles below Rock Island, Illinois.
They were actually smaller, well, like people could tell because it's narrower, but they're actually smaller barges than what they're used to seeing today, weren't they?
That's true, Dan. Originally they were pulled by, well, not so much on this canal, but on some of the older canals like the Erie and other ones, they used mules and horses to pull the barges. Most of them, after this canal was built, they were powered by steam or coal. And the last commercial craft to go down the Hennepin was in 1951, when it was closed down to commercial traffic, and after that it was just strictly for recreational use. You know, the thing about the canal, Dan, is that there's so much good cover. I mean, everywhere you look, it just spells out bass.
Well, that's what I'd said. There's all sorts of it. Like we've been fishing weeds. We got weeds, we got moss, it's actually a good educator. To me, it's like a small river, more controlled, but it's man-made, but you have a current that you can fish, and it's a little bit
I think
different.
the canal would be a good place for somebody that's just starting into bass fishing to kind of get out, you know, and try their lures out and get a feel for it.
Yeah. And they got a chance for getting some decent fish because, like I said, I've caught some nice bass in here. And we still may get some. You know, we haven't done all that bad. We've got some that are keeper size.
You know that pile of wood you're fishing in, Dan, it looks like a real mess, which it actually is, but sometimes that'll hold some good bass.
Well, that's spots that I really like fishing.
A lot of people are afraid to throw into areas like that, but sometimes you have to take a chance.
Well, with your Texas rigged worms and your weedless jigs and that sort of stuff, it's not as bad, and that's really what you're going to be throwing in there anyway. You can run a spinnerbait around the outside edge. In fact, most of the time I'm not re-fishing these piles like I do a lot of times. It's best to fish the outside edge with spinnerbaits and such and get your most active fish and then go into the middle of them for your inactive fish, which are your bigger ones. But I just thought, well, we got some good activity over here anyway, and I just want to see what's going on here.
That calls for pretty heavy line. What 10-pound test are you using on that?
I've got 17 on this one. The other one that I'm using for this down here, which I'm going to be getting out because I want to see if they'll hit a jig. And a lot of times I get my bigger fish on a jig. This is 50-pound test, but you wouldn't know. It's only got the diameter of 10 because it's what they call a gorilla braid, and it's the big game gorilla braid. Now, a regular 50-pound test line, to pitch it like that, oh, there, I had one hit. Right off the bat, something hit that. I've got a little rattle on this jig, too. I've got it actually stuck in the end of the craw bait, right on the end. I make some barbs on the thing and stick it up into there, and that rattles a lot better. I think you can probably hear that than what it does most of the time with your regular rattles that you have on your jig.
trying to cast as close as, there's one.
You got him?
Yep, feels like a good one.
That's good. We're gonna need help with this one, huh? He looked decent. Yeah, that's a better fish. Oh yeah, you got a good fish this time here, Don.
He's going through some acrobatics there.
Yeah, this is a nice fish. Can you get him there?
I can get him, Dan. If I can lean over far enough,
You hope you can get him. There we go.
It's a nice canal bass.
That's about the size that I'm usually catching in here. That and just a little bit smaller.
Let's get my pliers out. He's hooked pretty good.
You want to see what an estimated weight on him would be? It's a metal ruler, and we'll measure him. Okay, he hits just about 17 1/8 inches, and he should weigh 2 pounds, 12 ounces. That's a good estimate, almost 213. Now that'll give you a quick estimate, and then you're able to release him. You want to release your own fish?
Go ahead, you can release it since you got it up there.
There you go. Good job, Don.
Thank you. I knew he was a little better than what I've been catching as soon as I hooked up on him there.
Yeah, he should have weighed about, like I said, he should have weighed about 213. You got that one on that spinner bait, didn't you?
You can see why I'm staying with that bait.
Yeah,
I won't knock success. If it's going to produce, I'll stay with it.
Ooh, little devil.
The kind I was getting earlier, Dan.
Now that's a little one, I'll tell you. That's about the size you'd think you would get on this bait. I've been surprised at the big fish I've caught on this little jig hit. Well, he's less cooperative than the big ones. Here, get back in there. Thing with the... You've been trying the one with the chartreuse willow. I think I'm going to try that one with the white.
That sounds like a good choice.
Yeah, it's got that iridescent type of skirt. It's you get it just right in the light, and you get that bluish flash that you'd get on bait fish. Since it looks like they've been doing some bait fish feeding, we'll see what we can get. I don't know, I've really never had much luck with a white blade in here, but we'll sure find out what happens.
I never had much luck with the chartreuse blade, you know, except on rare occasions till today, but it's made me believe that it's got a lot of potential.
I've had real good luck on chartreuse blades, especially like in the Mississippi River and any dirty water. Yeah. Give that thing a try for a bit. It won't take me long to take that off, or at least switch rods if I don't get something on it. I like the looks of that in the water.
They moved out a little ways in.
Come around. Look at there. Flew off and hooked him in the back. I had him in the mouth. Now that's something. Now, come on, settle down here. This is the worst way to get him. There. I had him in the mouth, it flew off, and then it rehooked him by the back.
He must have rolled on it.
Something. He just wasn't meant to get loose. Whoop. Out here. Yep, you get it on the old sluggo. I was right on that. Just that type of a... The way those fish were working along there, that's just the time to throw that type of a bait.
Sure seem to be.
Yeah. Anytime you've got them up actively chasing fish up that close to the surface, that's the time to throw a jerkworm.
Well, that's a nice one.
Yeah, he isn't bad.
Want to take him over the other side for a closing?
There we go. Get around here. Come on over here. In the weeds. There we are. They're still up there and hitting. There's no doubt about it. Well, Don, I think this car is going to have to be the final catch of the day.
It's a great way to end the day, Dan.
We've got a lot of fish today, haven't we?
Sure have.
Boy, I tell you, it's been great fishing. I want to thank you for being a guest.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You give us a lot of good information about the canal, and we've had some great fishing along the way. And so until next time, folks, get out on the water and enjoy a great day of fishing.
On the mighty Mississippi, fishing a lake or stream, Dan will entertain you while pursuing an angler's dream. With rod and reel in hand, he searches for the trail that'll lead him to the story or other fishing tales.